Hey everybody, it's Glenn from the Pet Food Puzzle Guy. Welcome back. What I wanted to talk about today is something that I hear all the time, and when I got started with this channel, I really thought it'd be more about discussing dry food and all the marketing tricks that dry kibble companies use to try to get you to buy their food. And it's funny how I guess I didn't realize I was jumping into the current marketing trend. We go from all natural to grain free to, on and on the different trends over the last 34 years that I've been involved. And now, of course, it's the anti-kibble marketing, and that'll last for a while, then it'll go to something else, God only knows what. But anyway, the big thing I kept hearing, the main theme that raw folks and homemade cooking folks will use is in their anti-kibble marketing, or I should say that they continue to spout because they learned it from the pet food marketers. It's just an idea that just keeps perpetuating, is that dry kibble, extruded kibble, is overly processed, ultra processed as they call it, and has lost all its nutrients. All the nutrients are cooked out of it, and depending on who you talk to, which website you go to, everything from extremes that the high temperatures denature some of the nutrients, which is kind of true, all the way to it just depletes all the nutrients, and your poor dog is going to die if you're feeding kibble. So there's everything in between. But I was just curious, since everybody was talking about processed food, and I just got a comment from a gentleman named Rick, and his question to me was, are you pro ultra processed kibble? And I did answer him, and I basically, well, my answer probably will be in this video here, but it was interesting the way he said it. Of course, I do believe it was a loaded question. When I'm not pro anything, I'm pro nutrients, I'm pro nutrient delivery, since that's what nutrition is, deliver the optimal nutrients. So that's basically what I told him. Whether it's dry kibble, whether it's canned, whether it's homemade, whether it's raw, whatever it is, I am pro nutrients. Deliver the right nutrients. Whatever form floats your boat, I'm okay with, as long as the nutrients are healthy. So that was kind of my answer to him. But I was curious, when I thought about it, the ultra processed, in our minds, anytime you say processed food, this is what I think of. Here you go. This is what processed food is right here. This is my favorite aisle in the store. Look at this stuff. Come on. Does that look luscious or what? And I am not thinking about my nutritional needs while I'm standing in front of this stuff. So I thought, let's look up the definition of processed. That probably is fair for all of us. So I looked up the definition of processed food, and I got this definition from the USDA. Why not, right? So basically, they define a processed food as one that has undergone any changes to its natural state. Any changes to its natural state. That is, any raw agricultural commodity subjected to washing, cleaning, milling, cutting, chopping, heating, pasteurizing, blanching, I don't know what blanching is, cooking, canning, freezing, drying, dehydrating, mixing, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so the point is, if you do really anything to food, which makes sense, there's a process. Whatever process you take, however minimally or maximum whatever, there is a process to every food. And I did also find, and yes, I just Googled this. This is not my expertise. This is not my area of study. This is not my area of what's the word, experience. So I'm just like you, trying to figure out, is process bad or good? And I realize when we go to Google, you got to be careful of the sources. But anyway, I did find this. These are the levels of processed food. I think this, I forget, the source was very reputable from this, but I'll put it up on the screen here. So there's minimally processed foods. That would be whole foods, such as vegetables, fruits, grains, meat, and dairy. So everything falls, there's a process to everything, but this is minimal. Okay, this would be your whole ingredients that the raw folks and home-cooked folks are endorsing. That's what they want. The next is processed culinary ingredients. These such as olive oil, butter, sugar, and salt. I'm surprised there's much processing there, but I guess there is to form that finished product. Processed foods, here we go. This is including cheese, canned fish, and canned beans. And then ultra processed. Now, to be honest, I really thought the ultra processed term was just anti-kibble people coming up with that term. I even made fun of it, I think, but there actually is a definition to it. Ultra processed does mean there's more processing going on. Makes sense. So ultra processed, frozen pizza, soda, fast food, sweets, salty snacks, canned soup, and most breakfast cereals. Now, I have to admit, I would not have known in that list, I wouldn't have included in my own mind breakfast cereals. I would have put that probably up with processed food, but it's called ultra processed because there's a lot more processes going on. So there is actually definition. So ultra processed, I have to stop making fun of it. It's a real term. But I did find this, and this quote, and again, I'll put up, this is not my area, so I'm just kind of just like you going to Google to see what I can find out here and how it applies to my concern about pet food. And what do I find here? It's also important to remember that not all ultra-processed foods are equal. This, I think, is key. When you do include ultra-processed foods in your diet, choose those with more nutritional benefit. I want to really hold on to that for a minute because I think, just like my video, my favorite aisle at the grocery store, not all ultra-processed foods are equal. The ones in that grocery store that I really love and can't walk by without wanting to grab something, the nutritional benefit of that versus other ultra-processed foods, whole grain bread and cereals or baked beans, for example, that I'm reading here, that's a whole different story. Those are actually healthy even though they're ultra-processed. Instead of crisps, sweets, or pizzas, or again, the aisle I was in the grocery store. Get in the habit of reading food labels so you can easily identify and cut back on foods that are high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. And I think the key, this is really a great paragraph because, again, ultra-processed doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. You have to look at what's the nutritional benefit of that ultra-processed food. Okay, and most of us know what junk food is. We're not stupid. We still love it. I still love it. But it's the ultra-processed foods that are high in what? Sugar, salt, saturated fat, especially unhealthy saturated fat. And besides sugar, what about all the artificial sweeteners that can be in there? Artificial colors, just lots of stuff that's in those foods. And I think it really comes down to, and this is the key, and I want you all to think about when we think about processed foods for people, what is the purpose of most processed foods for people? It's real simple. What? Convenience and make it taste good. Am I really going to McDonald's when I want comfort food, or going down that grocery aisle with all those wonderful sweets thinking about my nutritional needs? No, I'm thinking about taste. I'm thinking about comfort food. It's almost an emotional thing, right? And some of you know they even put ingredients in some of that stuff that actually makes you want it even more. You actually get addicted to it. So purpose is really key here. If you're processing the food with the purpose of just making it taste really good and making people want to keep eating it, even though they know it's bad for them, the ingredients you put in are going to go along with that purpose. That makes total sense. If the purpose is a nutritional one, that you're processing this food to make a nutritional product, well, then that purpose is very different. The ingredients are going to be different, and that's what we find when we look at some, not all, but some commercial kibble, extruded kibble made by some reputable companies. If their purpose is nutrition, not easily, I take that back. It's actually difficult, but they can produce a nutritional product in that form. So when we say ultra processed, yeah, there's a lot of processing going on, but for what purpose? If it's McDonald's, I mean, again, anybody could look at, I can tell you, I'm in my 60s now, and my wife and I have been eating healthy, the last 20 years, I suppose. We've never been terrible, but definitely in the last 20 years, we've gotten more serious about it. Why? Because at this age, those excesses, just like in your 7, 8-year-old dog or cat, they affect us more now, whether it's blood pressure with sodium, whatever. Um, but where was I going with that? I forgot. It's the other thing about being in your 60s. When now that I've been eating pretty healthy for the last 15, 20 years, much healthier than I was when I was in my 30s and 40s. Um, if I fall off the wagon and I start eating processed foods again, human processed foods now, and the worst kind, my joints start hurting. I start feeling sluggish. I don't perform very well at the gym. I can notice a difference. So my body can't tolerate that stuff that it could when I was younger. And the more that I stay away from it, the more when I go back to it, it really just wreaks havoc on me. So I can feel the difference. And I know most of you would agree, processed foods, they've linked it to many disease conditions. But again, we're talking about human processed food. That's what we're all used to. Now, most processed foods, what is it on the human side? What do they do? There's a couple key ingredients you find in all of them. It's part of the processing, I guess. And what is it? It is lots of unhealthy fats. It's lots of sugar. It's lots of preservative. So everybody knows that's the case. But again, we can't fault, well, I guess you can't fault those companies because their purpose, let's remember their purpose, is just making something that's convenient, semi-cheap. They'll go to McDonald's and get a meal now and it's like $10. It's ridiculous. It's not cheap anymore. But the point is, everybody knows the purpose of McDonald's and Taco Bell and all those places. Relatively cheap, fast, and yeah, it's unhealthy, but it sure tastes good. That doesn't mean all ultra processed foods for people are have the same purpose. Same is true with dog food. Can you make a crappy McDonald's type dry kibble that has lots of bad ingredients and worse excessive nutrient levels like sodium and stuff like that? Absolutely. But can you have a different purpose and make a healthy one that delivers the right amount of fat and the right kind of fat and all the amino acids, all the protein that the dog needs without going excessive, and controlling all the micronutrients, all those minerals and vitamins? Can you do that in an extruded product? Absolutely. There's no question, because there's companies that do it. We know it. We have the data. Now, if you're into marketing and you're selling raw or homemade or, air dried or whatever the newest craze is now, anything that's anti-kibble to differentiate your pet food from everybody else, oh yeah, then you're just going to create this idea that all this junk food that my mouth was watering at the grocery store, well, that's what you're feeding when you feed kibble. There are well-known veterinarians. Some of you know, Dr. Karen Becker would be one. There's plenty of others out there. Oh, if you're feeding dry kibble, they don't mention companies, just any dry kibble. As long as it's that form, you're basically feeding McDonald's. That is one, it's wrong. It's irrational. It's definitely wrong. Anybody in nutrition could tell them that, but it sells. It sounds really good, and that's why they say it. But there's no truth to it whatsoever. Again, show me the purpose. I always talk about show me the nutrients. Maybe that's what I should start saying when we look at a pet food. Show me the purpose of that food. If it's just to appeal to people, get them to spend a lot of money on appealing looking ingredients, in a website that's fabulous with all these wonderful ingredients on there, if that's their purpose, guess what? I can guarantee you that when we look at the nutrients, they're going to stink. They're going to be excessive. They're going to be imbalanced. Why? Because their purpose is selling pet food. It's marketing to a consumer that's willing to spend a ridiculous amount of money on a food that appeals to them. Versus if the purpose of the company is nutrition and optimal nutrients, then it's going to be very different. Process, cooking. Well, I can tell you most carbohydrates are not going to be bioavailable to a dog or cat unless they're cooked. Being raw, they're not going to work. Sure, you could feed raw meat, there's raw vegetables, but as far as carbs, they have to be cooked at the right temperature for the right amount of time to become bioavailable. So that's a process. But if it's a process that works and you know what you're doing, it's healthy for that animal. So anyway, I hope this has been beneficial, and let me know what you think about the whole process thing.